Most AI companies are racing to build faster chips, but one company is trying to get paid on every chip without building any. And if that works, then LWLG, Lightwave Logic, gets embedded into the entire system. Everyone is focused on AI compute. NVIDIA, AMD, faster chips, but that's not where the system breaks, because once data is created, it has to move. And that movement is now happening through light, inside the fiber optics, inside AI data centers, and that's where the bottleneck starts to show up. And here's the part where most people don't understand. All of this, the lasers, the modulators, the materials, this is all happening inside something called the transceiver, which is here. A transceiver is what actually sends and receives data. It takes electrical signals, turns them into light, and sends them across fiber optics, and then converts them back again. So when we talk about Cybers or LWLG Plasmonics, we're talking about different technologies competing for space inside that transceiver. Let's simplify this. Every time data moves through an AI data center, it follows this exact flow. Laser creates the light, the modulator encodes data onto the light, and then the fiber optic sends it. That's the system. All of this is happening inside the transceiver. So say this slower: the laser, the modulator, and then the fiber optics. So now this entire system runs on silicon photonics, which basically means using silicon chips to move data with light inside these transceivers. And it works, but as AI scales, it starts to hit limits in power and heating and in speed. And that's exactly where LWLG is trying to step in. Companies like Cybers, Lumentum focus on lasers, but LWLG sits right here on the modulator. They don't create the light, they control how that light carries data. Here is the CEO of Lightwave Logic explaining the company.
Is we actually switch the light that's coming out of the laser, and the laser sends light down the fiber optic networks, which is these glass cables that go all over the country. So we make this little component, and this little component actually sends and speeds up the data that gets going through the internet, as well as it lowers the power consumption. So it's a really interesting optical component that's made of organic material.
And here he is talking about the AI bottleneck.
That information needs to be sent on the internet. And so you need to send a lot more information a lot faster. And if you think about, these data center type places that you find all over the country and the world, they consume tons of power. So the two metrics, the Achilles heel of the industry, if you like, is sending more data because of things like artificial intelligence and keeping the power consumption in check, if not reducing it. And our technology does exactly that.
So Lightwave Logic is working on electro-optic polymers. These materials allow for faster speeds, lower power usage, and smaller size. And here's the key: they don't need to rebuild the system. Their polymers can be added on top of existing silicon photonics. Here's what you need to understand. LWLG might not replace silicon photonics. It might upgrade it, which means they don't need to win the system. They just need to be inside the system. But LWLG is not alone. Right now you have silicon photonics, today's standard. You have LWLG polymers, the upgrade path. And then you have Plasmonics, the next generation approach, which is Marvell, all solving the same problem. just in different ways. Now, this is the part where most people miss. There may not be one winner. Different technologies can exist depending on performance, cost, and scalability. Now, this is where Lightwave Logic gets really interesting. They're aiming for a model similar to ARM, licensing and royalties. They develop the material, others use it, and LWLG gets paid per unit. That means high margins, low capital requirements, and massive scalability. So now it's still early. The company is targeting a 2027 production ramp, and they currently have stage 3 customers. And the goal is to convert those into real production. Today equals potential, but in 2027, that means execution. One of the biggest concerns has been reliability. And recently they passed 2,000 hours of stress testing. They also work with major foundries like TSMC, Global Foundries, which matters because that's where this would scale. Marvell is also investing in Plasmonic technology. So the question becomes, does that compete with LWLG or complement it? There are two outcomes. LWLG becomes part of the system, or larger players go internal, which means they make it themselves. Even if one large customer ships hundreds of thousands of units and LWLG earns a small royalty, that scales quickly. And because it's licensing, margins could be very high. But this is not guaranteed. Adoption, competition, execution, and timing, this is a technology bet. So zoom out. This isn't just one company. This is a system. Laser creates the light, modulator encodes the data, and then fiber sends it. Sivers creates the light. Lightwave Logic improves how that light carries the data. And then Corning and a couple other big players distribute it. And all of it is competing for space inside the transceiver. So the real question isn't, is LWLG the winner? The real question is, does this technology get adopted into the system? Because if it does, LWLG doesn't need to dominate. It just needs to be inside the transceiver. So if you want more breakdowns like this, including the stocks that I'm watching in my portfolio, check out the membership in the link below. And we'll see you in the next one.